Let's try again. So, this is a little video. Hi, I'm Tom. Hello. Hi. In a bubble over here. This video is about um, a picture that's been on Facebook a lot recently. The date on this picture is February 20th, 2018. And I'm making this video to talk about what I think the reasons are for what we're seeing, that it's colder in Canada and parts of North America than it is at the North Pole. Um, a lot of people who see this picture have been remarking or commenting that, there's a pole shift happening, that the location of the pole is moving southwards, and that's why it's cold up there. Uh, it's getting colder to the south and getting warmer to the north. To look at this, we can look at some of the reasons why actually it is cold at the North Pole, colder at the North Pole than it is to the points south of there, until you go all the way down to the South Pole. And most people know this reason, that the sun rays hitting the Earth are stronger. There's more sun hitting each square mile, each unit of the Earth's surface at the equator. And as you go up towards the pole, the amount of sunlight directly hitting the unit of space on the Earth gets more diffused. So you see the same amount of sun hitting the equator, less sunlight hitting the 45-degree parallel, and then even more diffused at the North Pole, which would mean less heat is hitting the North Pole than the equator, right? So if that was the only thing you knew, you might think that, the pole was shifting towards the south and that's why it's cold. Well, there's another reason why it's colder at the North Pole rather than the equator. And I'm not going to use this video for shizzle. And that's because the height of the atmosphere that we live in, the troposphere, uh, it's variable. So it's highest generally along the equator, and then it tapers off down towards each of the poles. It's actually significantly lower. The troposphere is the layer of atmosphere that we live in. It's lower, much lower at the poles than it is at the equator. And this is for a couple reasons. If you see this nice slide here, the atmosphere is thicker at the equator than at the poles due to temperature differences. The warm air is less dense. It takes up more space than the cold air. But also, the Earth spins. And as the Earth spins, there is a tendency for the air to gravitate towards the equator. Just like how as the Saturn spins and you see its rings have spun out into a disk. And if you try this yourself, if you hold something heavy, or not too heavy, don't want to tax your arms too much, but if you hold something up and you spin in a circle, then you spin and spin and spin. If you try to raise that thing that you're holding up with your arms, it's going to gravitate towards your center of gravity. And if you lower it and you keep spinning, it's also going to gravitate up towards your center of gravity. So there's a tendency, because of the rotational spin of the Earth, for the air to gravitate towards the equator. Then what happens is the air getting warmed by that more sunshine hitting the equator rises up, and it cools off and it goes down towards the poles. And I'm not a weather expert. I'm just a guy who likes to study and learn about the atmosphere. But but so this goes back to this slide now. The atmosphere is higher and thicker. Our level, the troposphere, is higher and thicker at the equator, and it tapers down towards the poles. What separates the equator, the troposphere, from the next level above it, the stratosphere, is a boundary called the tropopause. So the tropopause separates our layer from the stratosphere, and the stratosphere is much colder than the troposphere. So the cold temperatures of the stratosphere are closer to the Earth at the poles because the troposphere is lower at the poles. So let's go back to this slide. What I think is happening here is that the height of the troposphere is lower in Canada, and warm air has pushed a high level of air up to the pole. So it's not that the pole is shifting. Scientists that study, people who really know about the location of the poles talk about the pole shifting a matter of inches over decades. Okay, so this isn't what's happening here. And there's another thing that people talk about, which is a pole reversal. And it's not what you think. It's not like the whole world turning upside down all of a sudden. It's a magnetic reversal. It can happen suddenly, and the theorization is that it has happened in the past, in ancient history, and that it could happen again, but it is not the whole world suddenly turning upside down. It's a reversal of the magnetic north and magnetic south, and no one really knows what we would experience if this was to happen. Some people theorize that we would have a momentary loss of our magnetosphere that protects the Earth from a lot of solar radiation and the radiation in space. That's all just theoretical because no humans have been alive during a magnetic reversal of the pole. It is important to realize that it would not be a sudden turning upside down of the world. Okay, it would be a magnetic reversal. I'm getting way off topic. The point I'm trying to make here is that how does heat get exchanged between the troposphere and the stratosphere? Well, hurricanes are a lifting of heat that's built up mostly in the oceans, and tornadoes are lifting of heat that's built up in the troposphere and going up and out into the stratosphere where it's much colder and the heat can dissipate into the stratosphere. Now, by the reverse token, there's something called this Tropopause Fold, and very seldom do weather people talk about it. They always say the cold air is coming from the north at the pole. That's right. It's colder at the pole because of this. But it's also cold sometimes coming from above, not north, but actually above us from the stratosphere down into the troposphere. That is called a tropopause fold, a low pressure zone, etc. We all know from common sense that cold air descends and hot air rises. So, in closing, what's happening here? Now you know 100% it has nothing to do with the poles reversing. It has something to do with a high warm air front moving into the pole and the low tropopause fold happening where the coldness of the stratosphere is getting close to the Earth south of the poles. The poles are not changing location, but the height of the tropopause, the height of the troposphere is changing. That cold air is lower, it's coming closer to the Earth, and the locations of where those are happening are what is shifting. That's my analysis. That's my 50 cents. So thanks for watching. Trying to make this thing work. How do I make it stop? Stop.